Sekejap. Okay. Okay. Yeah, hope everyone is well. Weird times nowadays, huh? Okay. So we are going to continue with the discourse analysis. See this one. Not this one. Oh, I see. Okay, okay. Stop sharing. Do you see this?
Yes. Yes, doctor.
So we're going to continue from the last time. So we've done this. Okay, speech events. Speech events is the higher structure. It encompasses multiple speech acts, culturally defined. So speech events will consist. Okay, speech events will have the speech situation, and this is the scene or the cultural scene and the setting. The setting will be physical. Setting means the venue, the place, the time, who's there. Okay, and then you have the speech event within the speech situation, and it can compose of speech acts. And the speech act is the minimal unit of speech act. So at the lowest level is the speech act, which is in a particular event and situation. So this is the hierarchy of the structures. So we have speech situation, speech event, and speech act. So the situation would be, for example, in the marketplace. And speech event will be the transaction of buying and selling. And usually the speech act will be offering. That means the seller offers the product to the customer. There's also a speech act of bargaining, of buying, which is bargaining, where the customer will actually use phrases, words to bargain for a good price for the product, especially in the marketplace. Okay, then you have, for example, another example is conversation. And then the speech event is the story that's being conversed, the story that's being told. There's always a story. It could be a short story, it could be a long story, but usually it's a not so long story. And then the speech act is the preface and the the message or the story. Another speech situation is ceremony. For example, the speech event is a prayer, and then the speech act is invocation. Invocation means we are giving prayers. We invoke. So we are giving blessings to our creator, for example. So we say certain phrases from the Bible, or certain phrases from the Quran, or some holy books that is suitable for that prayer. So there'll be different kinds of prayer. So a ceremony, wedding ceremony, solemnization would be different prayer. So with different words are being uttered at that point. Ceremony for burial would be different. So there will be different speech acts for the ceremony. Actually, there's different speech acts for can be more than one speech acts for each of this speech situation. And then the speech act is the actual words, phrases, sentences that you use in those speech situation. Okay, so these are the components. We have seen it the lecture before. It is proposed by Del Himes. Speaking, speaking, which has factors collectively defining a speech situation. So when we are, as we saw, well, in the advert for the bank, the guaranteed bond, we saw that it is a text because it is a advertisement, poster or brochure that's being distributed to customers. But even then, when we take out the meaning of the brochure and we write it as a normal prose, you can also see the difference. Yeah. But there is also a difference between written text and speech events. Because speech events are situations which involve speakers and hearer, which involve situation. So the language that's being used is different compared to written text. But actually, having said that, even in written text, as we saw in the advert, it could come out, it could be expressed like a speech event, like a real life interaction, just by the way you phrase things. In the advert, we saw that you can actually create some kind of effect by putting the negative and the positive. Katakan dia kata, you expect the train to come in 5 minutes time. It came in 20 minutes later. So there is this, I call it juxtaposition, which is putting side by side the positive and the negative to invoke certain effect for the reader. So actually some text can be like a speech event, especially for example, if you're looking at novels and dialogues in the novels, they are actually a representation of the speech event as in the story. So in general, they're saying that there are differences between speech events and text. Yes, but there is also some leeway there to say that actually written text can emulate speech events, especially in certain genre, like the brochure that we saw, and also in novels, when the characters are speaking. So this is what we had gone through. So written representation versus interactional text. So there is written representation, which is talk, and text. Let's see what it is. So talk is biological givens, lungs, vocal cords as you are producing the sounds, tongue, lips, intonation group, and then for the ear when you're listening, You're listening to the stress, the timing, the intonation, which is contours and stresses, prosody, which is tempo, volume, rhythm, voice, and quality. These all help to convey the exact meaning and exact effect that the speaker wants it to have. It is for current local listeners. Is bound to context of participants, and there are markers of relationship between in terms of the terms of address, the pronouns that are being used. Sometimes the use of deixis. We talk about deixis as a reference to a direct reference to something in the physical, which is that book, your book, this map, here behind me. These are all deixis. And imagine when you're saying this, you're actually either pointing or pointing with your face, let's say. Attitude, it does have some attitude. It's produced in real time, meaning directly. So this is actually talking about talk. So talk would have hesitation, pauses, fillers. You pause when you talk. You have the ahs and the and the that's the fillers. You have reduction. In the reduction means the utterances are more simplified. Sometimes you do repair. When you feel that people don't understand what you're saying, you rephrase, you repair. You also digress, where you're talking about something and then you thought about something and you then start to talk about the other thing. So you're digressing from the main conversation. A dynamic topic development, it's very dynamic in terms that it can be expanded or it can be reduced or diminished. And then you have generalized vocabulary as you're speaking. Repetition, formulaic speech. Formulaic speech means some speech that like it's frozen. It's like a phrase, like a chunk. So you say things like what formulaic phrases. I can't think of right now, but let's see if they have examples. Speech rate is constrained by organs of speech as you are producing. The speech varies from about 3 words to a maximum of about 5 words per second. In practice performance, or when your practice performance of reading, memorized text, it's about 5 words per second. And women tend to talk faster than men. Because of stress timing, word length has little effect on speech rate. Okay. What are the cultural convention? You can be talking with gestures by using your hands, and then you can for the eyes you can actually this is text convention. So you can see the written text across the page. There'll be words, sentences. There'll be either capital letters and lowercase letters, diacritics, punctuation. For any present or future reader, even remove spatially permanent, relatively context-free, or generally accessible or impersonal. In terms of text, you can produce it at your own leisure. That means you have the liberty to draft a full sentence and then have time to edit the sentences, eliminate false starts, hesitation. I need that at this point in my life, I need that very much, able to edit, because somehow as I age, I find that I make a lot of spelling errors, and sometimes what I want to say, I think of it, but I don't really type the whole thing. You know, like your thinking is ahead of your hands typing. So I appreciate time to actually edit my text as I write. But reading rate is almost unlimited. You can either read it slow or you can read it fast. It's not constrained by the organs of speech, and it only depends on the visual skills, practice, whether you're interested in what you're reading, and the goal of your reading. So this is text. Special features of talk versus text. So spoken language is typically face-to-face, eye contact, gesture, spatial orientation, voice quality, accent, the way you pronounce words. Prosody, the tempo, is it fast tempo or slow tempo, rhythm, whether you are producing speech which are rhythmic. And this is, they say that it is usually found on when you're talking to people on the phone. And when we are talking with people on the phone, we are able to get more information about the caller and the feeling that the caller is having. Usually spoken language is organized around the intonation group. There's like usually a pause with some peaks. First, usually we start with the given information, what we know, and then we start with the new information. For example, so I went in and I had a ball, and I just like turned around and I shot it. Didn't even look, and it like hit off the backboard so hard. It was so bad. So you can see that there are intonation, increased intonation, some pauses and some repetition. So intonation groups. Spoken language is edited online. Editing also happens in spoken language, but it is real time lah. So we have restarts where we do self-correction. Let's say if you pronounce it wrongly, then you repeat the word, you pronounce the word again. Or you started with something and you stop and you start again. Little pre-modification, more concrete contextual reference, no sentential orientation, as you can see just now, it's the spoken one. Parotactic relationships between short intonation units. Meaning parotactic means it's like syntactic. So as you see in this example, it is having sentences lined up together, parotactic relationship. So there's this guy and he's really old, and he's got this dog really like a really ugly dog, and he walks in here. So although it's a long sentence, but there is short intonation units that is in the sentence to make it understandable. Okay. And this is what we do. We try to make ourselves understandable. So when we are testing children, for example, using the MPLAT, especially the sentence repetition task, When I'm training someone, I always tell them, try to read the sentences as though you are talking. Yeah? So there'll be stops, there'll be pauses. Because if you read it like a sentence, then when the child listens, he cannot get. First, he has to get the words in the sentence, and then he has to remember them. He has to understand and he has to remember them. Sentence repetition kan, and then he has to give you back the sentence. So when he's understanding, he needs to understand the units, the word unit and the sentence unit, and then the whole meaning. And then when he wants to repeat back to you the sentence, he's using all of his abilities to remember and then to rephrase it as was given to him before. Okay? So it's quite a complex task, yeah? But you can make it easier if you speak with some pause. So for example, this long sentence, I can say, there's this guy. When I say that, when I'm pausing, right? There's this guy and he's really old and he's got this dog, like a really ugly dog, and he walks in here. So even though it's a long sentence, when we pause it, it gives meaningful, it helps in the hearer to understand the sentence and to maybe give you back the sentence. So this is a mechanism that is being used in spoken language so that you are understood by other people. Because if you just like people have difficulty in keeping up with what you're trying to say. So for a written text, we prefer something like this. The same spoken that we have just here. This guy, and he's really old, and he's got this dog, like a really ugly dog, and he walks in here. So for written text, we would say, a rather old gentleman with a terribly ugly dog walked through the front gate. So this is basically capturing the essence of the meaning of the interaction just now. But it gives, although it's very, what is the difference between this written text and the spoken? The meaning is still the same, but for the sentence, it's quite clear. It's immediately when you read the sentence, it's quite clear. The subject is the rather old gentleman, and there's a modifier to the gentleman who is with a terribly ugly dog, and he walks through the front gate. So when someone reads this, it's very easy to understand what is being written from this sentence. Yeah. But from the spoken, if you don't have the pauses and stuff, it can be quite difficult. So that's why sometimes, because of accent, when we are like currently, I'm like into watching The Court, which is on Netflix. It is a series of, I think it's a drama series because it has many series. But it's talking about Queen Elizabeth. From when she was young. I caught it when she was young. I don't know whether they talk about the time before her, but it was about her, Queen Elizabeth, Queen of England, right up to what I have finished so far is about Diana, Princess Diana. So sometimes when you listen to them speak, their accent, I guess it's Queen English. So they would have a subtitle. They would have the spoken thing. I think they do. Maybe, I'm not sure. But sometimes movies would have the conversation. They would put it at the bottom of the screen. So that people who have difficulty understanding the accent can just read the sentence. So, yeah. I think for other Netflix movies, I think they might have the subtitles. Not subtitles, what do you call it? Transliteration, something like that. Spoken language is full of cues, as we know lah. There's the intonation, there's the facial expression, the body language. So the information is conveyed visually and through the voice, and then the face-to-face interaction, which contains clues to the listener. For example, Jack, hey, have you seen Elle and Judy? Jill says, well, I saw Judy. And then Jack says, Elle was with her though, right? And then Jill says, they've kind of been like fighting, you know. So from this conversation, you kind of know that Jack is a friend to Elle, Judy, and Jill. Or they might have some kind of, maybe their husband, I think more of a friend lah. Okay, so Jack is a friend to Jill and Elle and Judy. So Jack asked Jill whether they've seen Elle and Judy. So Jill says, I saw Judy. And then Jack says, I guess Elle and Judy is a couple. And then Jack says, Elle was with her though, right? Oh, and then Jill says they've been kind of like fighting, you know. So that's why she only saw Judy. Judy was alone. Judy was not with Elle. So from this conversation, you can get what they are saying, but you also get the presupposition and the implicatures about the relationship of the people in this conversation, and particularly about the conversation of Elle and Judy. So these are the things that we have to extract from the conversation when we are listening to it. Okay. So these cues are often called discourse markers at the beginning and ends of units and hedges internally. They are not usually present in written messages, so that readers must cue more on neutral lexical meaning. So let's say if you had converted that conversation to a text, you've written a prose, we call it. A prose is a written description or written text about, written paragraph about a conversation, let's say. So then we would write, Jack asked Jill if she had seen Elle and Judy. Jill said she'll seen Judy. She had seen Judy. Jack asked if Elle had been with her, and Jill said they'd been fighting. So you do get some of the information that's embedded in there, but not all. Okay, and so it is a difference lah. There's a difference between the written one and the spoken one, because you can imagine that if you're listening to the spoken one, there'll be the tone of the voice, the high and the low, and for example, Jack will say, Elle was with her though, right? Like, you know, like, right? Elle was with her though, right? So even that kind of tone, you kind of think that you can say things about Jack. He's concerned about Judy. Maybe Judy was at a certain place alone, so Jill had gone, you know, to a place, katakan, let's say a bar, for example. Jill went to a bar and then met some friends, including Judy, and then Jack was concerned that Judy was alone, not with Elle. So you can read that concern from the conversation. And then they've been kind of like fighting, you know. So also Jill Jis is also a concerned friend that they have been a lot of they've not been at good they're not being good to each other the past few most recent times. All right, so what this is saying is that if it's written, then a lot of the flavors, the information about the meaning is toned down, sterilized, not much. Only what is written, what is said. Only what is said is written, but not the extra stuff. One can find stretches of everyday conversation where every single turn begins with a discourse marker rather than part of a grammatical unit. And that came through the mail. So, and that came through the mail. So, if you do discourse analysis, you have to analyze and. What does and represent? It's not just a connective. Usually in grammar, and is a connective, right? But even as you read this sentence, and that came through the mail, you think that before that there was something else. And then adding this last sentence, and that came through the mail. We don't know what happened before that, but for people who do discourse analysis, they would be actually looking at the whole text, and then they would be analyzing what was before, and then the use of and. What is the use of and? For example, the discourse analyst in Malaysia, I believe he has passed on, Dr. Azhar Simin. Dr. Azhar Simin, he's a linguist in social science, UKM, and he actually looked at the discourse marker yang. He studied yang in Malay for his PhD thesis. So it's a very interesting long study about yang. Yeah? So he looks at text, a lot of text, and then he described the use of yang. So there are various use of yangs, various meanings in the discourse. Yeah, so much so that he actually say people who think that grammar is morphology and syntax, they miss a lot, he says. Because when you look at the words and the sentences, that's just part of the story, he says. But if you look into discourse, then it gives you the other interesting part of the story. Yeah. So that's the area of discourse analysis lah. So according to Azhar Simin, grammar should be discourse grammar, not sentence grammar. If we do sentence grammar, then it misses half of the story. Okay, so these are all the discourse markers lah. Well, isn't that nice? All these are giving extra information. Yeah. Oh, she's but like you said, she's cute, as you all know. So this is the butt is a big butt. So maybe she's apa dia? They panggil they call it this is like a formulaic expression. A dumb blonde. A dumb blonde is someone who's very pretty, but is not very intelligent. Yeah. So she's like she's so beautiful, like a sex symbol, but like you said, she's cute, as you know. Yeah, Kelly will love this. She's really, she has a special jewelry box that she puts those things in. So these are all discourse markers lah. But I'm trying to get things as soon as you come back. Well, I'm hoping, yeah, I would like to move back. Or just something like, well, now in the area somewhere. Or yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Mark doesn't want to leave California though. This is the problem. This is in response to maybe someone saying, Hey, come visit us in Chicago, let's say. So California is on the west and Chicago is on the east. So someone say, hey, come over for Christmas to Chicago, for example. Well, I'm hoping, I would like to move back, but, okay. So you can see these examples of discourse markers. It not only serves a grammatical function, but it brings on other extra meaning according to the context. All right. So for example, if you say this one, but this is all experience too. But means what? What is being said that learning or experiencing something, and then you say, but this is all experience too. This is also some people say going to university is getting an education, right? But this is an experience too. Living life is education. You always think. I think at your age, when I was young, I also believe that getting a education is going to the university lah. But as wise people say, the life also teaches you. So, all right. Okay, this is looking at discourse markers in text. Discourse markers express different relationships between ideas. So the discourse markers are generally used at the start of a phrase or clause. Sentence connectors do not always begin a completely new sentence. They may be separated from the previous idea with a semicolon. Okay. So these are the sentence connectors and then the meaning of what you are, of what those connectors do. So sentence connectors. However, this is good. However, on the other hand, in contrast, this is making a contrast between two separate things: people, ideas, etc. So this is basically putting two ideas together. So you say something bad, however, then you're going to say something good. And then you have although, even though, despite the fact that, in spite of the fact that, regardless of the fact that. These are all conveying the meaning of making an unexpected contrast or concession. Okay, and then because, since, as, insofar as, saying why something is the case. Yeah, and then therefore, consequently, in consequence, as a result, accordingly, hence, thus. Oh God, did I think I record, right? Okay. Therefore, so this is saying what the result of something is. So therefore, consequently, these are the things that we should remember actually when we are writing. Let's say you're going to be next year, fourth year, doing your final year research. These are the things that will come in handy lah. The phrases or the connectors that you need to use when you're writing. Or sentence connectors, if in the event of, as long as, so long as, assuming that, given that, expressing a condition. On the contrary, as a matter of fact, in fact, indeed, making what you say stronger. So you're re-emphasizing. So these are the discourse markers for sentence connectors, what it represents when you use them. So if you are wanting to say the result of something, then choose a connector which is suitable for that purpose. Okay, text cohesion and text coherence. Very briefly, a text is cohesive if its elements are linked together. That means there's a unity there. And coherent if it makes sense. These are not necessarily the same thing. A text may be cohesive, i.e. linked together, but it could be incoherent, meaningless. Here is one such text. I'm a teacher. The teacher was late for class. Class rhymes with grass. The grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, but it wasn't. In terms of cohesiveness, are they linked together? Well, they are linked by words. Like you were talking about, I'm a teacher, and then the teacher. So there is a link, yeah. And then class rhymes with grass, and then you use back the word grass. But actually, when we read it as a whole text, it is not coherent. It doesn't mean much. What has teacher to do with grass? So the idea that's in this short paragraph is not logical, not meaningful. This one goes back to your academic writing class, you remember? We talk about being cohesion and coherence. So each sentence is notionally linked to the one that precedes it using both lexical and grammatical means, but the text is ultimately senseless. So we need to be meaningful. So if you remember academic writing, I was saying you must have a topic sentence. If you have a paragraph, you must have a topic sentence. And then all the other sentences are contributing to the topic sentence. Okay? So we need that. And there's only one idea for one paragraph. If you have more than one idea or 2 or 3 ideas in one paragraph, it gets illogical like this. It gets very messy, not very clear. The exact relationship between cohesion and coherence is a matter of some contention. While it is true that a sequence of unlinked utterances can make sense, it is often the case that some form of linking with discourse markers, such as and, but, so, or for the formal variants, moreover, however, consequently, makes it easier for the reader or listener to process and make sense of what they read. So you usually need also the discourse markers. Nevertheless, a text which is poorly organized is not going to be made more coherent simply by peppering it with discourse markers. As I said just now, that actually drafting, it's like constructing a house, You plan your architecture of the house, right? You just don't simply build a house. You actually get someone to draw a plan of the house for you. So when you're writing, you're planning something. So of course you remember we say do an outline. So when you do an outline, you have the thesis statement of the written piece. You actually know what is the main idea of the whole essay, let's say. You want to convey in the essay. So you have the thesis statement, and then you will have the paragraphs which will each have a topic sentence, right? And these paragraphs contribute to the thesis statement. So there is coherence in that sense. Of course, when you have the discourse markers, it makes the transition from one paragraph to the other smoother. But what they are saying here, if a text is poorly organized in terms of ideas, then it's not going to be made more coherent by putting in discourse markers all over the place, peppering it with discourse markers. Okay, this is a text. Okay, supposed to be overloaded with discourse markers. Louis rushed and got ready for work. But when he went out the door, he saw the snowstorm was very heavy. Therefore, he decided not to go to work. Then he sat down to enjoy his newspaper. However, he realized his boss might get angry because he did not go to the office. Finally, he made another decision that he must go to work. So he went out the door and walked to the bus stop. So as you can see, basically, each sentence would have at least one discourse marker. So we have but, therefore, then. So all sentences have discourse marker. However, finally, so. Yeah. So the following text is an example of a text that is overloaded with discourse markers. It is somewhat typical of the kind of text that many students produce as a result of an overemphasis on linking devices at the expense of other ways of making text cohesive, of which probably the most important is the careful use of vocabulary. So surely there is a better way of explaining this very short episode, short situation. So when you put in too many discourse markers, it gets too mechanical, too robotic. When you read it, it sounds disjunctive. Okay. Oh, okay. So this is a text. I think I've given the. What is the function of the following short text? Underline or highlight all the discourse markers, including those associated with the specific function of the text. So if you read this text, it's about management style. So French-American business managers have decidedly different management styles. I can bet you this is the thesis statement. It could be a topic sentence also, if it's a paragraph. So this is the main idea, okay? That French and American businessmen, they have different management style. French meetings, for example, are long and rambling and rarely end on time. Furthermore, meetings often end without closure. Americans, on the other hand, make an effort to start and stop a meeting on time. And American business meetings typically end with decisions and action plans. Another difference is documentation. Americans adore documentation. They have a procedure manual for everything. The French, in contrast, think this is childish. French managers find it difficult to stick to a schedule. The French, in contrast, think this is childish. End of the second point. Okay, the third point. French managers find it difficult to stick to a schedule, but American managers are intolerant of delays. In addition, in another point, the French prefer to work alone, whereas Americans like to work in teams. Another major difference in management style is that in French companies, authority comes from the top. French managers do not share information with subordinates and make decisions with little participation by employees beneath them. In American companies, however, top managers share information and frequently solicit input from subordinates. Many ideas here in this paragraph, but can still be, I guess maybe it is supposed to be a short comparison between French and American management style. So it's just like listing, not really elaboration, no example. Maybe this is just you're asked to write a paragraph on comparison between. I guess this could be an answer in the exam, for example, again. Maybe students in management, and they read about this topic, and then they are asked to give a short comparison between the way French manage and American managers manage. So it is like a whole paragraph, but full of points, but different points. And you can see that the different points are being marked by the discourse markers. Yeah? So furthermore means adding on. So they French meetings are long and rambling. Rambling means it goes on and it rarely ends on time. Furthermore, on top of that, furthermore, it's on top of that, in addition to, meetings often end without closure. No decision. Americans, on the other hand means you're giving the other side of the coin, the other side, which is the American. On the other hand, okay, and then another point. Another difference involves documentation. So then using the in contrast. So Americans adore documentation. The French, in contrast, using the making the comparison. I guess French managers is actually more with the documentation. I think French managers find it difficult to stick to a schedule, but American managers are intolerant of delays. And then another point. In addition, the French prefer to work alone, whereas Americans like to work, whereas is the marker, in teams. Another major difference, another is you're giving another point. And then blah, 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 blah. However, top managers share information. So it's giving the fact that in French companies, they are authoritarian. Not like Americans, maybe. So yeah, you can see that how they use discourse markers associated with the specific function of the text, like I say lah, maybe an answer in exam. Okay. So cohesion refers to the linguistic elements that help to make a discourse semantically coherent. The phrase and the words and phrases used to achieve cohesion are often referred to discourse markers, also known as cohesive devices, linkers, connectors, transition signals, and signposts. Okay, I think so text and talk are similar in that they convey messages by achieving coherence, although each does it in very different ways. So let's say this one is talking about contraction. Contraction is always in the speech. Never use contraction in written, unless it's a dialogue. Reduced forms. Let's see. Talking about passives. Spoken written. Different stylistic tendencies. Passive, normalization, contraction. Passive. This is an example of passive. Actually, passive, we use passive when we don't want to, actually, we want to highlight the object noun phrase. We could also have the agent here by the mayor, but we could also have it without the agent. So you could say, Sue was greeted formally at town hall. So obviously we are focusing on Sue, the president, or the president of the association, let's say. Or you could also say the woman was greeted formally. The woman who was greeted formally left early. So focusing on the woman. All right. In some instance, in a paper, for example, there are some parts that you use, if you read, when you're reading for your assignment, for example, you can actually look at the journal. And some parts is mostly in the passive. And some parts, they are inactive. It's never like all passive or all active. In discussion, for example, the writer will be more active, because this is where the writer has to defend the findings by invoking other research in the area, let's say. So if I say gadget in my essay, for example, in my paper, in the article of a study that I did on gadget use among children, let's say. So I already say that it poses disadvantage to the child with excessive use of gadgets, let's say, kan. So I demonstrate to statistic there is a significant difference between children who use gadget and those who don't use gadget, for example. So in the discussion, I have to upheld that with giving examples of other findings from other research. So in that sense, in that discussion part, I'm going to be actively using the active voice. Usually in the literature review, we use a lot of passive, because we are now in the literature review, you're telling about other studies, about what they did in other studies. So different voice in different parts of the writing. So deixis appear in speech but not in writing. In face-to-face speech, deictic expression refer to the position, the place, the time of the hearer. That's why in writing you have to be very clear because you're not there. Like in speaking, when you're speaking to someone and someone say, where is it? And then you point, there, it's on the table. So you can make it clear. But in writing, you have to be very clear about what you're saying because you're not there to modify when someone don't understand. So that's an example of it. Okay. I wanna do some work. Not this one. Oh, I think I have to go back. Wait. How do I? Let's see if I cannot. I can go back to here. Okay. Stop sharing. So look at the Word doc. If I open this Word doc, okay, there is, oh, I think it's in PDF. Can you see?
Yes.
Okay. So we can do this exercise. Just looking at this example. Underline, highlight the discourse markers in the sentence and discuss their function. So you want to take a minute or two, a few minutes to do that on your own. And then we can discuss the answer. I'm going to call people, so be prepared to provide the answers, okay? About 10 minutes, and then after that we discuss. I think it's very easy. I think maybe less than 10. When you're ready, you tell me. Just going through the sentence, I think. Our class is still 5:30 today, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Assalamualaikum Doktor.
Waalaikumsalam.
Saya nak jawab yang A boleh?
Okay.
Okay. So untuk A, furthermore, child mortality rates must be at the mean. The discourse marker is furthermore. The function is to add more information.
Okay. B? Who wants to do B?
Doktor, saya nak boleh?
Alright, siapa ni?
Saya Atira. Nurul
Atira.
Atira. So the B is prices are rising worldwide, thus encouraging investment. Thus is the discourse marker, and then the function is to make inference.
Inference, huh? Prices
Yes.
are increasing.
So they are like making inference of the first because the prices are rising worldwide. So making
Anyone else?
encouraging the investment.
Tadi you were saying inference, huh?
Yeah.
Anyone else have another answer for the function?
To show cause and effect.
Yeah, to show cause and effect. So I think that's a better one. Atika. Because dia macam because prices are rising, therefore a lot of investors wants to invest in that particular area lah. So dia macam cause effect ni tu. Alright, thank you. C. Who wants to do C?
Me, Doktor.
Who's me?
Shazanani.
How do I apa?
Shahzanani.
Shazanani. Panggil apa?
Nani.
Nani. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So C, due to the high rate of inflation, interest rates were raised. The discourse marker is due. Ni pun
Dia kena
sama.
due to.
Due to. Ni pun untuk cause and effect.
Cause and effect. Due to ni kan, anyone have other? What's the function? I think we agree that due to is the discourse marker, but what is the function there? You cakap tadi apa? Cause effect Cause effect.
Doktor, kalau pointing out situation.
Pointing out situation. Because of this. There is a connection though between cause and effect, but what is different between B and C, for example, kan? So macam tadi siapa? Umur kata what is it? Condition, due to the condition.
Yeah.
I kind of think that's a better one because it's focusing on that. That's why it's at the beginning. Due to this condition, then not merely like C, like B. And like B, you know that this causes this. This one is more of looking at the reason juga sebenarnya. The reason because of the high rate of inflation, you can actually replace that with because. So it's like a reason, but it's more of a condition. Okay, D. Finally, the role of the computer in education will be discussed. So it's quite easy kan? Finally is the discourse marker, and then you are giving the last point. Which is the role of computer in education. Okay. E. Anyone wants to do E?
Can I do it, Doctor?
Yeah.
Is to provide example.
So what is the discourse marker?
Sorry. Sorry. For instance, is the discourse marker.
For instance, is the discourse marker, and then
the function is to provide example.
Function is to provide example. Okay, last one. Yes.
Can I answer that, Doctor?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For
Siapa ni?
F, Alia.
Alia.
Okay, so for F, the discourse marker is although. So the function is to contrast, for contrasting.
Yeah, can. Tapi macam there's extra. Aside from contrasting, what do you think it can do also? Yes, contrast. Although the study concentrate on this, but other aspects of it will be discussed, kan? Macam addition pun ada kat sini. You're given the contrast, but addition. In addition to, dia macam, although this study concentrates mainly on students from abroad, but some aspects of students locally will also be explored. Macam tu. Yeah. So contrast and also addition. Alright, thank you. Oh, dah ada kat sini. Okay, read the following 2 paragraphs. So, ada 2 paragraph. What is their function? Underline, highlight all the discourse markers, especially those associated with the main function of the text. Let me see what else we have. Oh, this is actually combining. Decide which sentence in each item is a cause and an effect. Right, C for a cause. Oh, okay, something like that. This would have been good, but we can read it. Okay, read the following 2 paragraphs. What is their function? Underline, highlight all the discourse markers, especially those associated with the main function of the text. Let's read the first paragraph. PC versus Macs. PC ni all the Mac is a Apple lah, Apple computer. PC is all the other brands, Microsoft or other brands lah, HP ke. If you're planning to buy a personal computer, you should know some of the basic similarities and differences between PCs and Macs. First of all, both PCs and Macs are composed of the same elements: a CPU, the electronic circuitry to run the computer, memory, which is hard and or floppy disk drives for storing information, 5 input devices such as a keyboard or mouse for putting information into the computer, and output devices such as a monitor, printer, and audio speakers for conveying information. They also have the same users. PCs are used to communicate on computer networks, to write with the help of word processing and desktop publishing software, to track finances, and to play games. Macs are likewise used to communicate, write, calculate, and entertain. So what is the function of the first paragraph? It's actually to tell the function of the computers lah. And basically, what is the aim of this comparison? Anyone wants to try? What's the aim of this comparison? Sarah, is Sarah there? Siapa lagi yang ingat nama Tang lah kot. Tang ada? Berapa orang yang ada dalam kelas ni? Twenty of you. So maybe Tang is not here. Mo. Mo, you there? So she's among the 7 who's not present. Okay, let's try Husna. Husna ada? Ada ke tak?
Doctor, I come just now.
Okay. Husna, is it?
I'm Mel. I'm Mo.
Mo. You present that ni? Were you paying attention when when I was so we were saying that this paragraph is talking about PCs versus Macs. Right? So we know PC is non-Mac lah. Mac is one whole world by itself. And then we have the non-Macs, which is PC. So in this paragraph, as I was saying, that it is comparing between PCs and Macs. But what's aside from the comparison, what is it saying? Aside from the comparison that, okay.
So, doctor, I need to tell you the difference between Mac and Mac and PC, is it?
In this paragraph, what is it saying? What is the function of this paragraph? Purpose. What is the purpose of this paragraph?
Doctor. What is the function? They are telling us the different and the same of the similarity and the difference of the between PC and Mac.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually,
and they are used.
In this paragraph, it's more similarities. That for PC and Mac, they would have the same elements.
Yeah.
Yeah. They also have the same use.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, they're comparing, but what else are they doing?
Oh. They are telling us about like their elements, their input device and output device and the use. That's all right. And what their function. Only that, right?
So are they different or the same?
Almost same, but
what is the word that signals to you they are the same? And that's the use of the discourse markers. Can you see a word that tells you they are the same?
Okay. Same element.
What are the words that is used in that paragraph which signals to you that they are saying that Mac and PC are similar, are the same?
CPU, the electronic security. Is it?
Go further down. Final few sentences.
Oh. They have found the same use, like
Okay, same use, yes. So therefore, they are used in the same way lah.
Yeah, both
What
are
else?
used for
Another
communicate.
word that I see there that signals to us that no difference between the two. What's the word? Go further down.
Doctor is above the picture, right?
Definitely above the picture.
Okay. I scared is below the picture and I can't see it.
Below the picture, I haven't really
Yeah.
put it up actually. You see likewise? You see likewise?
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
so this is a discourse marker also. Means max are likewise used to communicate. So actually, according to this author, there's no difference between the two. They have the same component, they have the same use, which is to communicate stuff. Then they are also used to communicate, to write, to calculate, and explain. So they're the same basically. It's just the brands. The brands are different, but you pay so much more for a Mac. You know, yeah, it's because of the branding. But they are the same. Okay. Okay. Someone else. Okay. Then they say highlight the discourse markers. Hey Mo, you want to do that? The first, you look at the sentence from the beginning, and
Doctor
then you
next person.
stop. Oh no, I want you.
Okay.
Wait,
Okay. Doctor, what is your question again? Sorry.
you read the paragraph until where my cursor is, which is speakers for conveying information. From the beginning until information here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you see? Now you identify the discourse markers from the sentences.
Oh, yeah, doctor. Both species. Doctor, you asked me to find the discourse marker, right? Oh, yeah. Because I'm not really understand.
Oh, you don't understand.
Yeah, I not really understand the discourse marker, but I can try it. Oh, yeah.
Some people say it's
PC and Mac.
connectors. Some people
Mm-hmm.
say it's connectors lah. What is that?
Doctor, discourse marker actually is means uh like a link, is it?
Yeah, it's linking. The function is to link. To link ideas, to link sentences, to signal. This is signal. This signal a particular
Both
meaning.
Doctor, both PCs and Macs considered as a not because it show the same of the PC and Mac.
Okay, but I think first of all is more,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So first of all, we know that they are going to list down the comparison of basic similarities and differences. And then first of all, so this is the first point, right?
Yeah.
Before that, you have actually, if you're planning, so if is a discourse marker.
Yeah.
Actually, if it's not just if then, but sometimes the then doesn't happen. So if you're planning to buy a personal computer, then so if then is a discourse marker, although then sometimes doesn't occur lah. Okay, that's one. And then first of all,
Oh, it's
second,
second.
yeah, I think, and then as you say, yeah, I guess both can signal that referring to both computers, types of computers, and then words like what other words can you see aside from both? I would think, yeah. What other words do you think are connectors?
Doctor, can it be such as
Such as?
like giving an example to elaborate? Yeah, such as a
Such
keyboard and
as. All right. Such as. Can. What else?
Doctor, if also.
Yeah, also consider.
Also, yes, they also have the same
Oh.
uses. They
Oh,
also.
daughter, if with?
Yeah?
With.
With not so much lah. Which is
Hmm.
which one?
The below. Yeah.
Oh, with, right? With the help of? No, it's more of together with right, isn't it? And
Okay.
don't forget and.
Oh,
And is a
okay.
very popular connective. So and output device such as and audio. So that's a marker also lah, indicating that addition in adding up and yeah. Right. I think likewise. To me, likewise is a connective also, because it's signaling that whatever they have said of PC, it's also the same for Mac. So likewise, actually, when you use likewise, you're summarizing the whole thing that's being said about PC lah. So Macs are likewise such a powerful discourse marker, likewise, because the function is to signal that what has been said before is also can apply to Macs. Okay, and then and also, yeah. Okay, so in this paragraph, basically they say they want to compare, but actually they are more of saying they're the same. They function the same, they have the same component, they function the same, they are used in the same purpose lah. Okay. Okay, now we see the second paragraph. Let's read the second paragraph. Okay. There are some differences, however. Whereas you'll find more PCs in business offices, you will find more Macs in classrooms. Although Macs are the computers of choice of people who do a lot of art and graphic design in their work, PCs seem to be the choice of people who do a lot of number crunching. Number crunching means they do statistic number crunching, involving a lot of figures. So maybe doing research using statistic, or doing accounting, counting money. Those are number crunchers. Finally, there is a difference in the availability of software, vendors, and service for the two computers. In general, there is a lot of PC compatible software, but relatively little Mac software. Meaning for most of Asia lah, we Asian people, we like PC because it has many compatible software. That means you can get alternative software or even pirated software. But if you're using Mac, you can only use genuine Mac software. No pirate software for Mac. And somehow, even if when you use Mac, you don't get virus lah. If you use PC, you get a lot of virus. You might have to install a virus buster. But with Mac, you don't need a virus buster, and they don't usually get infected lah. Okay. Furthermore, for a Mac, you must purchase your machine and get service from a Macintosh authorized dealer. Whereas many different computer stores sell and service PCs. A very specialized service center lah for Mac. When I had a Mac iPhone, I went to this service center in I believe it was Sungai Wang or Berjaya Times Square. So when I was sitting there, a lot of customers are waiting, and they actually can do also on-site repairs lah. And then someone comes in and talk to the person at the counter, and the person at the counter will actually check your device. Can you give me your device, your iPhone or something? So he check and then say, oh sorry, your device, I see it has been tampered with. He says, we cannot repair it because someone else have tampered. You send it to somewhere else, and the device has been tampered, so we cannot service your iPhone lah, for example lah. So very specialized, very specialized. So in this second paragraph, what can we say about the content? Who wants to do? Sekarang ni Siti Aisyah diam saja. Siti Aisyah Hasral, are you around? She around? Siti Aisyah.
Ya, Doktor.
Okay. Selalunya you yang selalu banyak cakap. Wait. Let's see. I should go. Where should I go? Oh. This one. So. What's the question? Let's see what's the question. Question is, read the following two paragraphs. What is their function? First, we want to know what is the function of the paragraph. And then we want to look at the discourse markers. So Aisha, what do you think is the function of this paragraph?
The paragraph 2.
Paragraph 2.
For me, it actually talks more about the differences between how PC and Macs work in terms of how choice, who it caters to, and then see there's a how it compatible with macam mana? Okay, first talks about the difference in terms of who they are catered with, and then to see the difference in terms of the software and all the hardware stuff. And then when it comes to like and then the compatibility of software in between PC and Macs, and then where can you actually purchase with the PC or the Mac.
Okay, to summarize, what do you think is the function of this paragraph?
To summarize the summary is the paragraph actually talks about the difference of both PC and Macs in a more clearer ways, like like which one is PC, which one is Mac, and all of that.
Okay, so maybe you can continue with can you show me the discourse markers?
The discourse markers.
Starting from the first sentence, first line. However, yeah? Why do you say that is a discourse marker?
Because it tells us about the differential from the previous paragraph. The previous paragraph talks about based on what I can see, the previous paragraph talks about the similarities, but in here the phrase however talks about the other side of the similarities, which is the difference in all the difference.
Right. So however is also a big word. It actually represents the first paragraph. So when you say there are some differences, however, Because that, however, refers back to the first paragraph, that whatever was written there that is basically the same, actually there are some differences. So, however is a discourse marker. Okay, okay, thank you. Any others in first line? Aisyah, ada tak lain dalam first line ni?
The phrase whereas. Whereas talks about one thing, and then talk about one thing, and then we talk about the other thing, which might also be different. I'm not sure how to explain this. Whereas means that whereas will find more PCB, more max in classroom. Meaning that one advantage in one thing, and then another thing have maybe a similar or more advantages than the previous statement. Something like that.
I actually wouldn't use whereas at the beginning of sentence. I think it's better to say you will find more PCs in business offices, whereas you'll find more Macs in classrooms. I think it's better in the middle rather than beginning. But whereas is a discourse marker, and usually connecting two different things lah. Comparing two different things. All right. Who else? Who else wants to volunteer? For line 2, 3, 4, and 5, let's say. 2, 3, 4, and 5. The discourse markers. Husna kot. Husna ada? Tak ada?
Hello, Doktor.
Hello. Siapa ni? Husna?
Yes, Doktor. Number
Line 2, 3, 4, and 5.
line 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Discourse marker.
Line 2, although.
What is the function there?
The function there. Untuk contrast, Doktor.
Contrast, okay.
And another discourse marker and to add info. Dia punya function.
Alright. Lagi? 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, finally.
Finally. And it signals?
Finally ni sequence.
Sequence.
Yeah.
It signals the final difference in the list of differences lah.
Yep.
Finally. Any other markers?
No. I think no, Doctor. There is difference
And yes. What about in general?
Yes, in general also a discourse marker.
What does in general means?
General untuk apa? In general.
When do you use in general?
To summarize.
Yes, to summarize. Okay.
Alright.
Thank you.
Sorry, Doktor. Tadi saya toilet.
I think maybe your phone is near your laptop.
Oh.
Sebab dia macam ada echo.
Oh, ya ke? Sorry, Doktor. Thank you, Doktor.
Thank you so much. Okay. Then we have the last few paragraph, which is in general. Tadi dah kata summary, but it's contrasting. Yeah. Furthermore, showing adding on a point adding on, yeah, in addition. You must purchase, whereas tadi tu comparing between two. So furthermore, for a Mac, you must purchase your machine and get service from a Macintosh. Whereas many different computers sell and service PCs. Okay, so you can see that the when you are writing, these are the discourse markers. That's how they work lah. Okay, and actually when you read, you also use that. So if you are, what's the application for you all as speech science students? When you're teaching literacy, do you teach literacy to children with dyslexia, let's say? So far, have you come across or managed a child or children with dyslexia? Because children with dyslexia, they will have to read and write, especially for the least, I guess, when you're doing. So you will actually, when you are teaching them reading, you will actually highlight to them the discourse markers lah, the words that connect ideas. It has its function there, and actually it helps when you are teaching reading, because you are giving strategies for the kid to how do you say, to focus on these words. All right, so we take a 5 minutes break, can we? Then we will continue with conversation analysis.
Okay, Doctor.
Okay, Doctor.
Okay. Hi, I'm back. All right, we're going to start with conversational analysis. This is the recording. So can we start with the lecture?
Yes.
Yes, Doctor.
Yes.
Okay, this is another topic, conversation analysis. So, conversation analysis, or called CA, is developed as a field in the 1960s within sociology. Sociology is the study of society. It emerges from the cognitive revolution that spread across the social sciences in 1960s. So if you remember, I talked about in 1957, in linguistics, for example, or even in psychology, Noam Chomsky came out with a book that debunks behaviorism by Leonard Bloomfield. So then on, from the 1957 book, the cognitive revolution starts. So conversation analysis seeks to describe the underlying social organization conceived as an institutional substratum of interactional rule, procedure, and convention. Underlying social organization conceived as an institutional substratum of interactional rule, procedure, and convention, through which orderly and intelligible social interaction is made possible. So this means to say that in sociology, the people are viewed as members of the community, and then there are kind of institutions which is a social organization, which is like an institution, and the substratum of this institution has aspects of interactional rule. How do you, when you are interacting with other people, what are the underlying rules, procedures, convention that you should observe and follow, in which and through which all of these rules about interaction, procedure, and convention make sure that orderly and intelligible social interaction is possible. Okay, so looking at the whole community, the people in the community as institution, and therefore we are members of an institution, a loose kind of institution, and then there are rules. Yeah? So Harvey Sachs, a young PhD student, was listening to tapes of calls and keep noticing things that struck him as sociologically interesting. So I'm not sure what he is, but he's like maybe having to listen to a lot of tapes. I don't know whether he's a telephone operator, but he was listening to tapes of calls, and he noticed that there's similar things happening in which runs across the calls. That is interesting because it tells about how people do such basic human action as introduce themselves. So when you are starting a phone conversation, especially when it's someone that you're not familiar with, you introduce yourself. And then you have a problem. So you talk about the problem, the issue that you want to consult with that person or ask that person's opinion, or, and then sound concern. The hearer will sound concerned, trying to solve the problem. These are tape recordings of real people doing, quote unquote, doing those actions. As soon as you see that this is an action, then you appreciate that there must be rules. And to use these rules is what it means to be human. So from his observation, this is what happened when people go on the phone. These are the things that they do. And so he sees it as doing, and he sees it as doing an action. And when that comes, when that is applied, he could see that there are rules between the speakers, speaker and hearer. And somehow or other, people use these rules unconsciously. So Sachs started there, and he tried to discover what rules people were using when they engaged with each other through talk. It's just like when you are looking at ants, trail of ants on the windowsill or on the floor, and you wonder sometimes, what do they say when they stop for a little split second? They meet, they stop, then they walk, then they go off. When they meet another ant, they'll just stop for a while, then they go off. So I sometimes wonder, what are they saying to each other when they actually stop? Okay. So he says, Sachs shows this stretch of thought and invite us to think about it. So A is the call taker, is the person that's being called on. B is the caller. A is the person receiving the call. So this is Mr. Smith. May I help you? And then B says, I can't hear you. This is Mr. Smith. And then B says, Smith? Yes. Can I help you? I don't know. I hope you can. So this is a short interaction. So B, the caller, manages not to give his name. It must be something to do with avoiding answering what the call taker says when he picks up the phone. Because when you receive a call, nowadays we don't know, but used to be last time, we'll say, this is Mr. Smith. Or you can say, audiology department or speech program. We used to have an audiology department. So when the kerani picks up the phone, dia akan kata, pejabat audiology, macam tu. Audiology, boleh saya bantu, macam tu. So, this is an instance where actually during like many years back, we used to introduce ourselves lah. So we receive a call, but this time I think now we actually expect that person to introduce themselves, not us. We will not volunteer our name until that person says, unless it's your friend lah. And so, however, in this interaction, Sex noticed that B, who is the caller, has avoided to give his name. So he says, avoiding answering. So that implies one rule straight away. If what precedes your turn is an introductory greeting, then you must respond in the same way. So let's say if A says, this is Mr. Smith, then the next thing that B would say, hi, this is Rogaya, which is very logical and very informative. So the rule is that you must say that, okay? But as we see, B doesn't respond in the same way. But he manages not to sound strange or rude. So he must be using another rule, something like not hearing is an acceptable reason to be excused the demands of the previous turn. You can do this. I guess sometimes the line is not clear. Nowadays we can say we are out of the area and the reception is not very good. So that reason can be used to not say who you are. So very simply, we see that there are rules even here in this comparatively tiny bit of behavior, and we see that not by abstract theory, but just by looking at what people do. So this is what intrigued him, that there is a rule, and then the person didn't obey the rule, but there is some reason why, because of giving an acceptable reason. Reception is not good, I couldn't hear your name. Then the person has to repeat again, this is Mr. Smith. And then he sort of says, oh, okay, Smith. And then he doesn't even actually say, I am who, but he can say, yeah. So then when he says Smith, of course, the receiver of the call has to say, yes, can I help you? Then he says something like that. So very simply, we see that these are things that we do in phone calls. So that's what comes out, the fact that we do things with language, isn't it? So this is what we do with language. The basic idea is that you follow normative rules. That is, people expect you to follow them. If you do, then the conversation proceeds smoothly. But what you say has its normal implication. If you don't, there's trouble. There's two kinds. So one is interactional trouble. Someone breaks a rule, for example, by saying something unintelligible, cannot hear. Then you'll see the next speaker either give a brief pause, which people hardly ever do in a free-flowing conversation, or try and repair the damage, or both, as in this example. So this is a conversation between a doctor and a patient. So A is a doctor, B is a patient. So this is talking about walking. Okay. So A is a doctor. So A is listening. And then after that he says, right. This is a pause. So with walking, pause. You'll be just slowing down. And then B says, yes, it's what my partner calls it plaited leg walking. And then there's a 3-second pause, and then B continue. How's can you just try and walk properly? My legs don't. They can't seem to lumber along and trip over my feet quite a lot, and don't seem lift them up properly. And then A replies and says, you said clattered. Huh? Okay. And then B says, clattered, leg walking. He. Then there's a silence of 3 minutes, 3 seconds. And then B says, then it says, the doctor says, I see. Yeah. And then B, the patient says, if you know what I mean, bit like a drunk, terrible, trouble with stairs, upstairs and downstairs. So the patient reports that her partner has a name for her difficulties in moving about. He calls it, sounds like platted leg walking. This is not a recognizable expression in English, and indeed, platted is not a known English word. So not surprisingly, the doctor has trouble with it, hence the pause at line 5. This pause. So the patient is saying something, and the doctor is saying, is like paraphrasing, and then B is saying, yes, my partner calls it platted leg walking. And then there's a 3-second pause, which is quite long actually. Yeah. So then, so this means, this indicates that the hearer don't understand what is this. Okay. The patient explains line 6 to 10, but it's not clear what this explanation completely covers everything about the expression. So the doctor tries a bit more directly, line 11, to see what is it that she meant. So line 11 is this one. You said clattered. And she says clattered leg walking. Okay. So, what is it? The intellectual problem just now is the pause is the help. The pause is the help because it shows that the doctor has problems understanding the word that's being used. So there's a pause. And usually, if it's when someone does that, and we are the speaker, and someone does that, we will quickly go and add on explanation about what we're saying to give more information. So intellectual problems. So the other one is implicational troubles. The other kind of trouble is that what he or she says is now much more significant. It isn't what people normally say. By breaking the rule, your words mean something different. Of course, this need not be trouble. This kind of rule breaking is usually done deliberately, so that people see explicitly that you could have said the expected kind of thing, but you didn't. You may link this with Grice's observation. So you find that when people flout the cooperative maxims, Grice cooperative maxims, it usually is a kind of, it's also meaningful actually, again, maybe have extra meaning. A. So I was wondering, would you be in your office on Monday by any chance? And there's a two. There's a pause there. And then, oh, probably not. Meaning, when someone says this, when A says this, and then B doesn't say anything, there's a pause. And then A repairs that. We say, oh, probably not. Probably you're not going to be in your office. Note that it is A who is responsible for both turns. So why does he or she answer his or her question? And answer it with negative. Because B has done the unexpected thing of not answering, the pause there, and thus allowed the implication that the answer is no. So sometimes when someone says something and you are silent, then that could be taken as a negative. So by silent means not being cooperative, quantity lah, they don't say anything. So in conversation, it is also observed that we turn take. the way people exchange the opportunity to speak, the turns. So someone speak, the other person listen, the other person speak, then the other person will listen. So there's always a turn take. I speak, you listen, you speak, I listen. There's a problem if everyone is speaking, right? Then there will be chaos lah if everyone is speaking. So there is this assumption of the turn take. And then there is a term adjacency pair. Adjacency pair is a formalization of our intuitive understanding that conversation proceed by participants taking up what the last person has said in a regular way. That the two utterances together form what is called an adjacency pair. The first pair parts, like questions, invitation, and orders, are regularly followed by certain kind of responses. Or second pair parts, which in these cases would be answers, acceptance, and compliances respectively. Yeah? So adjacency pair means when someone asks a question, the next part is the answer. Let's say someone invites you, then you reply to the invitation. So for example, how are you? Greeting, reciprocation, how are you? So this is a how are you? How are you? You know, or mum. That means asking for the mother to say something. Mum, what about you? Yeah, yes, acknowledgement. Or have you got any roasted peanuts? That's a request. And then complied by putting the nuts on the counter. Sure, means yes, go ahead, take some. Yeah? And if these don't follow immediately, they follow eventually, after some other sequence has been inserted into its brackets. So have you got any peanuts? What? The roasted ones? Yes, sure. Yeah? So sure comes after what the roasted ones and yes. So there can be some intervening responses before the actual response. So typical pairs are greeting, reciprocation, summons, acknowledgement, request, compliance, assertion, agreement, question, answer. These are all highly predictable. So these are things that we do. Normal things. But looking at conversation, we often find that, so conversation is actually an analysis which looks at people doing conversation. So when you analyze the transcription, you analyze the transcription, you can actually see what's happening in a conversation. So these people, we call them conversation analysts. They will actually be studying what people do when they talk, in a conversation. So these are the things, the concepts that you come up with. So by looking at conversation, we often find that a first pair part is sometimes, for example, a question, is sometimes followed by something that is clearly not an answer in the required sense. It might be so if that happens, it might be a refusal to answer, like a pause, a redirection to somebody else. So maybe there's other people, so other people might answer. A challenge to the questioner's right. Like just now, how are you? Then that person will say, how are you? Or just plain competence to ask that question and so on. It looks as if this destroys the predictiveness of the conversation analysis claim. But in fact, it turns out that this non-expected SPP do have some regular features. The clue is in how the answer is given, in what conversation analysis calls the preference organization. So there are certain structure to the turn take. So there are, the structure can be preferred or dispreferred. So if you look at a collection of unexpected responses, you'll find that they are done differently from expected ones. They are not so prompt. They'll give a hedge or request for clarification or an account or something that alludes to difficulty or an excuse. So why don't you come to our party on Saturday? And then B didn't reply. There's a pause. And then B says, well, I like to, but it's Hannah's birthday. So mark rejection. Yeah. So this is something like, so the violation of it indicates that it's the opposite of what you expect. Yeah? If it's positive, you will say, oh, thank you for the invitation. I'd love to come, let's say. Yeah? But because there's a pause, then probably the answer will be negative. So, so this is the preferred response. The latter is an example of what is called a dispreferred response. The rejection is, it is empirically found, marked by hesitation and hedging, and an account of why the preferred response wasn't given. The mark is so powerful that it alone will suffice as a rejection. And then, so for example, why do you come to a party on Sunday? Pause. And then, aside from that, he does the hedging. Hedging is this one. So A immediately, after the pause and then hedging, A will conclude that B is going to decline the invitation. Imagine what would happen if you gave this preferred reply without marking it. So direct answering. So why don't you come to a party on Sunday? No. Like someone like you, and then you're shocked, right? That would look strange and rude. You would infer something about B, that maybe they are sulking. Sulking ni merajuk lah. So you might have done something which caused them to be angry. So now they are sulking, merajuk. So they'll give the direct no, but it is strange and rude. So the informativeness of such deviation shows us that the substance of the dispreferred SPP, that it is a rejection, and its value and its markers, a pause and a hedge, normally go together. Okay, let's see what we have after this. Sequential placement. It matters greatly where exactly the words are put in the conversation. Their placement will make the meaning quite clear. Alright, so this is actually patient. Okay, let's read this. PSY, I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's a psychologist, maybe? Wondered if you mind completing this. It is basically, it is about what social activities or recreation activities you have been up to in the past 3 months. Just to see how you're getting on with things, okay? Then there's a long pause. Past last 3 months. Just roughly. I know it's hard to say exactly, but if you think just since Easter, whether you've been doing any of those things. Okay. So the patient's words at line 6 are clear enough semantically. They are a statement in which every word is quite clear. But of course, he is not simply saying last 3 months. not saying last 3 months, in 6. The placement suggests something very different. It is in the place you would expect the second pair part of the question answer pair. So the psychologist probably asked the question, so there was a pause. Supposed to be an answer, but there was a pause. So the placement suggests something very different. It is in the place where you would expect the second pair part of a question-answer pair. It isn't an answer, so it must be relevant to the non-production of an answer. A search in the preceding turn will reveal that these words form part of the question, so repeating them is presumably a comment that these words are causing some difficulty. Okay, so when there's a non-production of an answer, and then Pat says last 3 months, so then the psychologist has to rephrase. Yeah? All right. So it's the placement of the pause and then the statement by the patient. Actually, conversational analysis is very complex in that you notice that they actually analyze the duration of the pause and then how the words are being pronounced with the long elongated vowel, you know. So, but it is an analysis which is very, very useful in people with aphasia. We will see later. Confirmation and reconstruction in text turn. It's very important for conversation analysis that speakers continuously interpret the previous turn and make that interpretation manifest in their own. It is CA's distinctive contribution to linguistics. It's very different from any theory of language, which looks for the meaning of words in and of themselves. So, if I say the washing up needs to be done soon, you might reply, I'm sorry, I was going to do it earlier. In which case, you have constructed the first pair part as a complaint. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It's a complaint, I was going to do it earlier. Or, you could also say, okay, I'll do it, which would turn it into a request. So if someone says the washing up needs to be done soon, if you say I'm sorry I was going to do it earlier, then that makes the washing up needs to be done soon like a complaint. Can someone is complaining, so you say, oh sorry, I was going to do it earlier, you forgot, or you took your time. But if you say, okay, I will do it, then the washing up soon, the washing up needs to be done soon is a request, because you have, so you can see that with the response, it can also be confirming that the first utterance was doing certain function lah. Okay, so there is a confirmation, a reconstruction. For CA, you don't get the meaning of what someone says just by looking up what they say in the dictionary. The same word in different places means different things. The same sentence in different places means different things. So the same interaction just now. Line 7 shows that the psychologist is orienting to the difficulty that the patient is reporting. So 6 reflects that the patient having difficulty to remember what happened the last 3 months. So then line 7, what the psychologist is saying is orienting to the difficulty that the patient is reporting. That is to say, by explaining what his original question meant, he's recognizing Pat's turn as not just a simple semantic statement, but in its sequential, a request for clarification. Okay, so that means 7 and 8 and 9, he is actually rephrasing what he said before. Okay. So in conversation analysis terms, an utterance has a range of conventional meaning from the dictionary, narrowed down by its sequential location where it is placed in the conversation, and open to be confirmed or challenged by the next speaker. Alright, so we're just gonna understand what is conversation analysis. But I think for any group that's doing conversation analysis, you need to understand a bit more lah. Okay. So I wanna actually show you a video of where you here. I think I need to unshare first. Stop sharing. Then I want to share. I want to include the computer sound, and then I will go here. Then I want to see whether they follow me or not. I'm here. Can you see this? Can you see the YouTube?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, sorry. Can you see the YouTube?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You're going to watch this video. This is basically aphasia, the disorder that makes you lose your words. What is the connection between aphasia and conversational analysis? Is because people who analyze conversation, they came out from the need to understand what people with aphasia is saying to their partner. Because as we know, people with aphasia might have difficulty producing the language or understanding the language. So equally, when they are communicating with their caregivers, the caregiver is also having difficulty. So the conversational analysis people, because of this need to understand each other between the patient and the caregiver, they actually analyze the conversation and help the caregiver to understand what the patient is trying to do in conversation, so that in future, in the next interaction, the caregiver can understand more lah, what to expect and how to help the person to compensate ke strategies. So we're going to see this video.
Language is an essential
Can
part
you
of our
hear?
lives that we often take for granted. With it, we can communicate our thoughts and feelings, lose ourselves in novels, send text messages, and greet friends. It's hard to imagine being unable to turn thoughts into words. But if the delicate web of language networks in your brain became disrupted by stroke, illness, or trauma, you could find yourself truly at a loss for words. This disorder, called aphasia, can impair all aspects of communication. People who have aphasia remain as intelligent as ever. They know what they want to say, but can't always get their words to come out correctly. They may unintentionally use substitutions called paraphasias, switching related words like saying dog for cat, or words that sound similar, such as house for horse. Sometimes their words may even be unrecognizable. There are several types of aphasia, grouped into two categories: fluent or receptive aphasia, and non-fluent or expressive aphasia. People with fluent aphasia may have normal vocal inflection, but use words that lack meaning. They have difficulty comprehending the speech of others and are frequently unable to recognize their own speech errors. People with non-fluent aphasia, on the other hand, may have good comprehension, but will experience long hesitations between words and make grammatical errors. We all have that tip of the tongue feeling from time to time when we can't think of a word. But having aphasia can make it hard to name simple everyday objects. Even reading and writing can be difficult and frustrating. So how does this language loss happen? The human brain has two hemispheres. In most people, the left hemisphere governs language. We know this because in 1861, the physician Paul Broca studied a patient who lost the ability to use all but a single word, tan. During a postmortem study of that patient's brain, Broca discovered a large lesion in the left hemisphere, now known as Broca's area. Scientists today believe that Broca's area is responsible in part for naming objects and coordinating the muscles involved in speech. Behind Broca's area is Wernicke's area, near the auditory cortex. That's where the brain attaches meaning to speech sounds. Damage to Wernicke's area impairs the brain's ability to comprehend language. Aphasia is caused by injury to one or both of these specialized language areas. Fortunately, there are other areas of the brain which support these language centers and can assist with communication. Even brain areas that control movement are connected to language. fMRI studies found that when we hear action words like run or dance, parts of the brain responsible for movement light up, as if the body was actually running or dancing. Our other hemisphere contributes to language too, enhancing the rhythm and intonation of our speech. These non-language areas sometimes assist people with aphasia when communication is difficult. So how common is aphasia? Approximately 1 million people in the US alone have it, with an estimated 80,000 new cases per year. About 1/3 of stroke survivors suffer from aphasia, making it more prevalent than Parkinson's disease or multiple sclerosis, yet less widely known. There is one rare form of aphasia called primary progressive aphasia, or PPA, which is not caused by stroke or brain injury, but is actually a form of dementia in which language loss is the first symptom. The goal in treating PPA is to maintain language function for as long as possible, before other symptoms of dementia eventually occur. However, when aphasia is acquired from a stroke or brain trauma, language improvement may be achieved through speech therapy. Our brain's ability to repair itself, known as brain plasticity, permits areas surrounding a brain lesion to take over some functions during the recovery process. Scientists have been conducting experiments using new forms of technology, which they believe may encourage brain plasticity in people with aphasia. Meanwhile, many people with aphasia remain isolated, afraid that others won't understand them or give them extra time to speak. By offering them the time and flexibility to communicate in whatever way they can, you can help open the door to language again, moving beyond the limitations of aphasia.
Okay. Can you see the slides?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay. So I have to go back from the beginning. So slide number 17. Okay. So the strength of conversational analysis, it provides a method of exploring on how language is used in context, in communication deficits, linguistic deficits in communication in everyday life. It moves away from the notion of the deficit belonging only to the person with speech and language difficulties, but involves the other people in the interaction, like the caregivers. It identifies patterns of behavior through assessment and can directly motivate intervention, can complement other approaches. It provides a method of evaluating therapy effectiveness, whether therapy is focused directly on interactional behavior or whether it is targeted purely to linguistic impairments. So for example, people with aphasia, it should be more of interactional behavior lah. Some linguistic impairments, but because that's what their difficulty is. So ways in which people with communication disorders and their co-participants can be seen to be affected by the constraints imposed by social interaction and to adapt and deal with those constraints. Ways in which linguistic behavior of people with communication disorders can be seen to be treated as problematic by participants themselves within the interaction. So we saw just now, yeah. Okay, so I think you're quite familiar with this because you have, it's next sem, next sem you're going to study about acquired disorders. So aphasia is a communication disorder that results from the damage or trauma to the brain or parts of the brain that contains language. So a person with aphasia may have difficulty in terms of turn taking, repair and topic management. Turn-taking rules may be violated by individual with fluent aphasia who has poor monitoring ability, which results in a domination of the conversation as they do not hand over to the next speaker. Do not hand over the turn to the speaker, to the next speaker. Impairment in retrieval of words. These are the deficits of people with aphasia. They have difficulty in assessing words, so anomia, slowed processing of the right words to use and the formulation of the responses may cause the individual with aphasia to lose his or her turn. Linguistic incompetence of the speaker with aphasia is particularly exposed in the environments of emotions such as frustration, anger or embarrassment by individuals with aphasia. So imagine individuals with aphasia are usually adults before the stroke. They are adults with careers, with jobs, with a certain status in the society, and then they lose that ability to communicate, and that causes a lot of emotions, frustration, anger and embarrassment. So these are some of the compensatory strategies adopted by individuals with aphasia. Compensatory strategies adopted to engage the use of other resources such as gesture, eye gaze and prosody. Other compensatory strategies are using minimal turns such as some markers of fillers. Yeah. And Hershen and Skegloff noted that the production of telegraphic speech, which is a feature of agrammatism, could be seen to vary in occurrence in the talk of the aphasic speaker. So they produce telegraphic speech. Telegraphic means they give you the main words, like a telegram. Come home, mother sick, like that. Come home, mother sick, which is a feature of agrammatism in people with aphasia. What is the role of the conversation partner? The partner or response of the listener should be to allow time. Either you allow time or you don't allow time. It will result in different conversational consequences. So the research have shown that you allow time, and the patient can be able to convey what he wants to say. Careful designation of the types of turn and the way the conversation partner responded to elucidate, to explain what the individual with aphasia was trying to say. It's part of, like rephrasing, yeah, re-explaining, giving rephrasing of what was said before, will facilitate the production of the of an intelligible utterance. A great deal of research on people with aphasia have come up with focusing on repair sequence, including self-initiated self-repair, other-initiated self-repair, and other-initiated other-repair in individuals with aphasia. So these are the strategies. What is the repair? Individual with aphasia has poor monitoring abilities and inability to self-correct semantic paraphrasia or neologism that can lead to inability to repair sequences. They have inability to request clarification, which may result in continued comprehension problems, so which might further add to their comprehension problem, not able to understand what's being said. So repair sequence in a aphasic talk-in interaction can regularly be long, unsuccessful, despite sometimes prolonged attempt. So I think the caregiver would need to be trained to help the individual with aphasia on how to repair conversation. So when they prompt, they give they prepare the person with aphasia to actually continue with the conversation. So examples, self-clarification, qualification of second attempt at utterances, which includes rephrasing. Okay, yeah, well, why? Well, coffee has a nice scent if you wrap something up and it smells like coffee. It's a fairly airtight package too. So, this RIC is actually explaining about the object that they are discussing. Or you can give a cue. A cue is a facilitating remark, maybe similar to the cue a therapist might give. I wore my, oh, you know what I mean. And then the cue would be, yeah, that was your new. And then you wait for the person to finish. So that is a cue to help for the patient to come up with the word that they want to say. Model, when a cue like hints is simply given away. What did you eat? Well, I had my toast coffee. And then the child will say, no, Dad, you had pancakes. So you immediately like give a hint, a cue like, which is actually a giveaway, but facilitating or correcting what the patient has said. Or reflection, reflecting what other speakers have said. I went to a lot of places, Jen said, and then Bob, you visited a lot of places. The main thing, and people have nothing. The partner have nothing, yeah. This is, I guess with Jen and Bob, I went to a lot of places, and then Bob says, you visited a lot of places. So giving Jen the opportunity to remember the places that she went to. The second one, I'm not sure what that is. Request for clarification. I went away, and then the partner says, how far? How far did you go? So giving giving Jen the opportunity to actually explain. So to elaborate. Okay. People with aphasia also have difficulties initiating new topics. This can arise from the difficulties repairing trouble sources as well as overusing minimal terms. they tend to take a more passive role in conversation and may have difficulty in maintaining conversation. And misunderstanding may arise when the communication partner could not comprehend what the person with aphasia meant. So by looking at this, maybe the therapist can advise on the partner how to overcome this. Maybe she helped the partner to start. She helped the person with aphasia to start the conversation. Yeah? All right. Conversational analysis can be used as a method for evaluating progress in aphasia. You can record a conversation between the person with aphasia and the conversation partner at the pre-treatment, during treatment, and post-treatment. So you can actually compare what was before the therapy, and then during the therapy and post-therapy. So when you do that, you are tracking the progress, and you're evaluating the progress with the recorded conversations. Yeah. So what else is here? So this is an example of the outcome of the study. They found that they look at speaking rates, words per minute, relative contribution of words to conversation, speaking efficiency, how many words per utterance, self-repairs and other repairs. So you find that when they improve, when the patient improve, let's say increase in speaking rate, increase in contribution, more words per utterance, then the conversation partner can reduce their own. So there is a decrease in the part of the conversation partner. So so the conversation that is being held between the patient and the conversation partner is a dynamic process. So you can actually use conversation analysis to help the conversation partner see how he or she can help in terms of these parameters lah. All right. So what else? Okay, so you can actually come up with a conversational analysis profile for people with aphasia, CAPA. Facilitate effective communication strategies between people with communication impairment and their caregivers. Yeah, so you can actually identify the specific conversation strength and weakness of the person. And then you can see also caregivers. You can both. So you can actually see the strength and the weakness of the people with aphasia, the caregivers. You can also comment on that, and then they can actually the caregiver can improve, can use strategies to help the person with aphasia. Okay, so basically, conversation analysis is a study that was a work that came out of Harvey Sachs, who actually were listening to hours and hours of phone conversation, and he found that there is some some action that we do when we have conversation, and then that kind of analysis it's then transferred to looking at how people with aphasia converse with their conversation partner, and that analysis is used to help the partner to actually identify what is the strength of the person with aphasia, the conversation strength and the weakness, and then what strategies to use to help them. And this is very useful for helping people with aphasia to regain their language. Yeah. Okay. So I think we've come to the end of the lecture. So next time we are going to do the presentation. Next time, I think, what is the class time for next time? How many hours? I don't think we will take the whole of the class. So I will look at what else, and then I will look at what else I need to add, and then maybe we can discuss about the exam, the format of the exam questions. Okay. Actually, I was looking at, you can go to YouTube and see a lot of videos on conversation analysis and conversation analysis with people with aphasia. So that will help you to understand. Readings. Let me see if I can find one good reading which actually talks about conversation analysis and people with aphasia. All right, so thank you so much for your time. We end here. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome. Bye. Take care.
Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome. I think I've already stopped recording.